Ben, obviously not the way you guys probably envisioned this season wrapping out, but what do you kind of take away from these last 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's been really tough. I think that we got to win more games, and I think there are some things that have happened at the major league level this year that have been really good, but certainly not nearly enough. Good things have happened, and while we really do believe that the players in the organization, with the players in the organization we have, the players on this team, not only can we be better than this, we will be better than this. And to some extent, the last 2 weeks have, you just make you really confront the things that you have to get better at. We have to get better at, and it's not just one thing. The roster needs to improve. That's gonna be a combination of guys who are already here and strengthening the roster in the offseason. And we also need to play, a really consistent, smart brand of baseball, and we haven't done that consistently enough in the last couple of weeks. It's not a lack of effort. We just haven't executed the way we need to win games, and been very difficult, and also incredibly motivating. We got to deliver better.
From your experience throughout your career, what are some of the qualities teams who are able to avoid these long losing skids? What are the qualities of those teams?
I mean, we've played almost 61 run games or something like that, and we're probably a team that's designed to play a lot of close games. Maybe not that many one-run games, but close games. And to win those games, you've got to. It's mostly three things. It's execute with situational at bats. Do the job in the at bats when the opportunity's there. Execute defensively and pitch really well out of the bullpen. And when we've done those three things this year, we've won games and played well. And when we haven't, and we haven't done enough of those three things the last stretch here.
Ben, why do you suppose Oneil Cruz wasn't able to take that big tangible step forward that everybody was hoping and he was probably expecting of himself?
Yeah, it's definitely something we're really digging into and focused on. It's really important. Thought he was there for a couple months. Got off to a little bit of a rough start, but stabilized, and then was proving that he can play center field, and that part I think mostly he has done. And it looked like for a couple months that he was about to take that next level, and it just hasn't happened. I think particularly since the All-Star break, the offensive production just hasn't been there. So he's aware of that. We're digging into it with him. I think the offseason is going to be really important for him. Mostly it just comes down to approach and swing decisions with him. It's when he makes contact and barrels the ball, still really good things are happening. It's just what pitches he's swinging at and how consistent is that approach, and it hasn't been there for him the second half of the season.
Yeah, but everything is good, health, sometimes there's things behind the scenes,
No, I mean, I think, look, this time of year, everybody's not feeling great, but that hasn't been the issue, and we just got to help him get to a more consistent approach at bat to at bat.
Ben, you signed 3 players to long-term deals. You traded Key Bryan Hayes, and you've kind of gotten subpar for their standard performances from Mitch Keller and Bryan Reynolds this season. How much has that been detrimental to the team, that the guys that you invested in to be cornerstones haven't quite lived up to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly in Mitch and Bryan's case, we believe in those guys. Do believe there's better to come still. Obviously, Bryan's been both of them been incredibly consistent performers for the Pirates, reliable. This year, maybe a little bit down for both guys. They're both healthy, they're both motivated. I think there's better to come in future years. So still see them as really important parts of the team. And we're, counting on them for sure.
Internal improvement was the big area of focus. That was like the main point hammered home this past offseason.
Yep.
After watching a lot of regression on the field, is it maybe now pivoting to we need to make more external additions this year?
Well, it's always got to be both. I think I think we're still going to need that internal improvement and believe it can happen. We've seen some of it on the pitching side. I think the group of young pitchers that have come up during the season and debuted and either gotten starts or pitched in bulk have that's mostly been encouraging. I think if we look at the pitching side, we can see the foundation of a good staff next year. We got to score more runs, and again, some of that's needs to come internally, no doubt. Either whether it's guys that have produced at a higher level in the past and getting back to that level, or improvement from young players. That has to happen. We believe it can happen, and yes, of course, we need to try to strengthen the offense through acquisitions this offseason too.
Ben, you mentioned that you think Jared Triolo could play shortstop. Can it be on an everyday level? Would you be comfortable going into 26 with him as an everyday shortstop, or is he better served in a utility role?
I think we have a lot of confidence in him in the lineup, kind of anywhere, including shortstop. So the fact that he can do more than one thing gives us that flexibility in the offseason as we look into what opportunities might be out there for us. Feel confident that he's showing here in the second half of the season that he can be a contributor on a good team, and whether that's at short or somewhere else or a combination, we'll figure that out as we go into next season. It is clear to me we've got to get more production in total out of the infield, and that's likely an area that we would target this offseason to try to find additions.
You do feel confident that he'll be able to sustain the offensive success, perhaps some of the adjustments that he made in AAA?
Yeah, I think if you look at the swing decisions, the quality of the contact, the underlying stuff, I think he's in a solid territory with that stuff. That's usually pretty solidly predicted. He's a good, solid contributor offensively. Not saying it's next level or anything, but as we think about putting a deep group of position players together and a group of position players where manager can write out the lineup and it's 9 guys deep and you feel good about it, definitely see him being one of those guys.
Going back to the pitching a little bit, you've had a lot of success there, as you've noted, but has that made the offensive struggles a little bit more frustrating, knowing that you've accomplished one of the hardest things to do in having successful young pitching?
It's certainly frustrating. In some ways not surprising. I think that on the one hand, we need to be better and faster at building that offense, no question. Ultimately, that's my responsibility. In some ways, pitching is more controllable, and I think you can make faster progress with pitching. Hitting is more complicated and sometimes takes longer. And in Pittsburgh, the way we're going to build that offense is going to be different than other places. It's going to have to come a lot internally. The year's been really interesting and frustrating on some level because really believe that really over the course of the last 2 years we've been very focused on organizational hitting development, organizational hitting infrastructure. Who are we selecting? What are we looking for? How are hitters developing? And we're seeing real signs of progress organizationally in hitting. It hasn't bubbled up at the major league level, and obviously that's the most important place, and we need to figure it out there fast. Because again, we need to deliver more. Our fans deserve better. Everybody who cares about the Pirates deserves better, and it's not going to happen until we score more runs.
And a lot of players have gone on record saying they'd like to see Don Kelly back as the manager. What are your feelings on that? And have you had any conversations about the idea of having Donnie return in that role next year?
Well, we talk all the time, and obviously it's a topic on all of our minds, and certainly on my mind as we get to the end of the season. I do think we'll get to the end of the season so that we can have a full assessment, and then our attention will turn to that. I think very quickly. My view of the job that Donnie's done is one that's not surprising to me. He's had confidence that when he took the job in May that he would do a really good job. He's an excellent communicator. He's dogged in his approach to the job. He has a high self-belief. He believes in people. I said before, he believes, he cares about other people more than he cares about himself. He's got a lot of really, really, really strong qualities for the job, and I've seen that play out. I've been particularly impressed by his willingness to go after some really hard things too, consistent with what we both agree we need to do better and more consistently to win more games. And Of course, you expect a manager to do that, but it's not easy when you don't have the full mandate of the permanent job to do that, and he's done it anyway. And I've been particularly impressed by that.
Last year at this time, around this time, you gave a vote of confidence for Derek in return. How much, obviously he got fired, so how much do you regret that, or do you feel like you waited too long to make that decision, given that the season kind of had already spiraled at that moment?
I don't regret it. You know, we learn from everything. At the time, based on the information I had, I felt like that was the right recommendation for the Pirates, and we also learned from it, and I learned from it, and we got into the season and felt like we had to make a change. So learn from everything, get better, take responsibility. Don't regret the recommendation.
It was around this time last year where you guys made a lot of changes on the baseball operations staff. Do you intend similar changes this year, or any other changes in the management spots?
I mean, I think you have to keep changing. Again, we have to deliver more, so we have to keep changing and holding ourselves to the highest possible standard in everything we do as a baseball operation. So I don't think that it will ever stop. The changing will never stop. I don't expect as many leadership hires this offseason as we've had the last couple, but that doesn't mean there won't be changes, and we've got to think about how we can support the major league team in the best possible way, and do whatever it takes to put players and the team in the best position to win more games next year.
Why hasn't things come together a little quicker since you got here?
Sleepless nights, wrestle with it every day. I think that there's always more than one thing, right? But the easiest thing to say is we've got to figure out scoring more runs at the major league level in Pittsburgh. That's simple. I think that we're still capable of playing a more consistent, just smarter brand of baseball day to day. Again, we've seen that in stretches. It's something Donnie preaches all the time. He's right on top of it. To some extent, the roster itself has to be put together in a way that allows that for that to happen. So I think we've made progress in certain areas. We see some of that bubbling up at the major league level. Feel like we've made progress in our farm system this year, and we've got exciting things coming. But it needs to happen faster, no doubt.
Ben, how far off are you? I mean, you're projecting so many things with resources that we don't have. Is it a bridge that's really far to cross?
I don't think so. I mean, it's painful to watch the games the last stretch because it's not reflective, I don't believe, of how close we are and how close we can be. That said, you can't just hope or assume it's going to happen. There's going to be some really important work we need to do to make it happen next year. But again, if you look at, take a step back, don't believe you have to squint to see a good pitching staff, a pitching staff that can shut down opposing lineups. We have some pieces of the position player puzzle in place. We need more. We've got some players coming. I think our farm system is in a stronger position than it was 12 months ago, which should open up trade opportunities this offseason. We should be pursuing those. We should be adding to the team, if we can, and be aggressive within reason on that, I believe. And there's an opportunity, right, with the manager position and everything around that. There's an opportunity to, really have a culture that feels different also going into next year. So I think for all those reasons, I do believe that we are closer than our recent stretch suggests, maybe closer than some people think. But talk's cheap. We got to go do it.
Ben, you've taken a lot of accountability for the unfavorable results. Have you spoken with your bosses, and have they given you any votes of confidence that you'll be back for next season?
I'm certainly doing the job that way. We talk all the time. Haven't heard anything to the contrary. So, I don't know that any of us in this room ever have full assurances of anything, but I want to help the Pirates win more games. That's it. You know, I don't do the job because of the job. I do the job because I want to be a part of making this thing work and winning more games and being able to leave PNC Park at night feeling better, everybody feeling better. That's why I do it, and I still want to do that. I badly want to do it, and that's all I'm focused on.
And you've talked about looking for internal offensive improvement, talking about the strength of the farm system. You got the #1 prospect in baseball. How much do you weigh the internal versus the external pressure of bringing up Konnor Griffin and giving him a chance to compete for a spot on the opening day roster versus weighing his development, given that he's only had a month in Double-A and that he's still very young?
I think we got to be really careful about it, honestly. Like, you know, he's had a remarkable season. He's 19 years old. He'll be 19 next April still, I believe. And that means that while he's had a remarkable season, we're obviously incredibly excited that he's a Pirate. There's still more to learn, and he hasn't played above Double-A. So I think we do need to be careful with it. This is a player who's really important to the Pirates. It's important to him, too, that he's set up to have the longest, best career possible for him. And, you know, we have some influence on that in terms of how we guide the next months, years of his entry into the big leagues, however long that takes. And so I do think we need to be careful about it. And sometimes with young players, sometimes there are unusual young players that don't follow all the rules. And we just don't know yet where that's going to take us. I think we'll keep assessing that going forward. We'll keep learning from him. And, you know, we don't have to make any decisions right now about next year or future years.
He does kind of fit that mold of being possibly the type to break the mold. Like, you know, that's the 19 or 20-year-old that could play in the majors.
Yeah, I guess you never know until you know, right? Until it's actually happening. You know, I think the thing that has stood out about him is to the very end of the season yesterday, his desire to keep getting better to the very last day of the season and showing up yesterday, wanting to work on something and having most of his offseason mapped out and all that is an encouraging sign for a 19-year-old.
Is his season over, or are we going to see him in Cincinnati?
I think his season's over. Yeah.
And you've broken a lot of the young pitchers in the ball relief role, and it's worked out really well for most of them. What was the thinking behind doing that instead of just starting them and getting?
Really just a combination of, we didn't, you know, at different times we haven't had enough spots in the rotation to start them all, and yet we wanted to expose them in the big leagues, and also felt like they're all ready to help us win games in some roles. That was one thing. And then the second part of it was, we felt in some cases that was just a natural next step in their development, that they would develop more doing that than they would by finishing out the year as starters in AAA. So combination of those two things. I think that if I think about the names that have been in those and are on the team now who have kind of been in that category, you know, would expect, we haven't had conversations with all of them, but would expect that the message would be, you know, pretty much for all of them, prepare to be a starter in 2026. And doesn't mean they all will be, because there's only 5 spots, but you know, I'd expect they'd all go into spring training in that way.
Ben, going back to Griffin, I don't know when Witt signed in Kansas City, but I think Triolo obviously signed very early in Milwaukee, and, you know, small market baseball is what it is. You know, would something like that be prudent or make sense to try to engage with Griffin as soon as possible?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even thought about that yet. I think that as a general rule, you know, we want to be in a position to have those kinds of conversations with young players that we believe in the most, and so we'll see what comes of that. You know, not just with not singling on him, but, you know, there are other guys that we've had a chance to do some of that. I hope we do more of it going forward.
How about Skenes?
Yeah, just, you know, put him in the same category. I think that's you hope to be able to have a window or a door opening for those kinds of conversations at some point, and you know, the first part is literally just having a conversation at some point, and then sometimes that conversation tells both people or both parties that oh, it makes sense to have more conversations. And sometimes it tells you, okay, it doesn't make sense. So we'll see.
With Paul, he's a two-time All-Star. He's National Rookie of the Year last year, Cy Young leading candidate this year. How much have you seen him grow? Like, where have you seen growth from him as a leader, and how much is it important for him to maybe take on more of a leadership role on this team and kind of take some ownership, given that he's your best player?
Yeah, I mean, before you get to the leadership part, I've been so impressed with his growth as a pitcher. He's been exceptional in both years in the big leagues, but he is doing it a little bit differently this year. He's adjusted, he's evolved, he's changed some things, and especially coming off last year, and just the amount of demand that's comes with who he is. He had a very busy offseason, and still disciplined enough to find a way to be ultra prepared for the season, and has obviously had a terrific performance. So to do all that at a young age and still evolve, it's very impressive. As a leader, I think 90% of it is just do what you do every day and do it with authenticity. I think he just does that. He doesn't have to say a word. He's leading. I think he's looking to find his spots to do more than that, to speak up and have conversations. I think he's moving at an appropriate pace on that, and stretching himself when it makes sense to. But I think that we need to win. When we win, we will win in Pittsburgh. It's going to be 26 leaders doing it in their own way, and some will be more visible than others because of who they are and how they play on the field. But the best teams have lots of leaders in the clubhouse, and so much of it is just showing up every day, showing up and posting, showing up and doing the right stuff every day when no one's looking, showing up and working hard in front of your teammates to get better at something, showing up and being accountable for some of it's just that you don't have to say a word, and Paul leads that every day.
Is organizational culture in a good spot? Because what you basically said is all that's culture.
Yeah. Well, we absolutely, and I think that it's so important that I would never be satisfied with where we are culturally. I also think the end of a very difficult season is a difficult time to assess culture. And I think we have a massive opportunity going into 2026 with the group we will have, and no matter what happens, some sort of form of new leadership relative, at least the beginning of 2025, to really make that what we want to make it. And again, part of the hard work this offseason is making sure that not only are we stating clearly what we want the culture to be, but we're filling that room with people who will make it that way.
Yesterday, Paul talked about urgency, and he didn't say exactly what the urgency was, whether it was his contract, whatever, but with him being here, with him being under contract for a certain number of years, do you kind of feel like there's more pressure and more of a window for this team to not only win, but win soon?
I think we have to. I think it's important for the organization to have one priority, and that's the major league team on the field, and winning as fast and as much as we can, and that's important for all kinds of reasons. And it's certainly our entire focus, my entire focus. I know how important it is. Paul is a part of that, and because of where Paul is in his career, he's an important part of why it's urgent. But it's not just about Paul; it's about the Pirates. We need to deliver better, and it has to be the most important thing.
Ben, I preface this by saying we're at the very top of the stadium, not on ground level, to just truly see what everything's going on. But there have been times this year where Oneil Cruz's effort has been very uneven, I guess to tactfully say it. Is there any way to change that?
Sure. It's one thing that Donnie's been very engaged in. It's not just Oneil. It's anytime we see anything that would be anything short of what we think the standard should be, Donnie's right on top of that. No hesitation whatsoever. And Oneil is, every player is unique. Oneil is his own person, and we've seen the exceptional gifts. We've seen him play really hard. We've seen him play through injury. We've seen him play through stuff that other guys probably wouldn't play through. And there's also been times, as you said, that it looks like he could hold himself to a different standard. He knows that every time it's happened. There's been a conversation. And then there's also other things that happen where he makes incredible effort, and that's also a conversation because you want to affirm that stuff too. That's just as important. Every player is unique, and they mature in their own way, and we just gotta hold the standard high and keep the standard high and keep working with them on it.
Thanks.